to Fueling Conversations, the Sport Nutrition Education Network podcast with Dr. James Fleming. Today sees the return of Katherine Amps to share her role as a physiotherapist. From sports science and military aspirations to elite roles with Harlequins and Beyond Health, Katherine shares how her diverse clinical journey, including ICU and neuro placements, shaped her compassionate approach. A pivotal moment came when she witnessed harmful weight advice given to her as a young athlete, sparking her mission to challenge the lighter is faster myth. We explore the vital link between physiotherapy and nutrition, especially in underfueling and injury recovery, and how physios can serve as a safe space for athletes. Katherine also emphasises the need for stronger collaboration across disciplines. Whether you're in sport, health, or simply care about athlete well-being, this is a must listen. Let's get into it. Hi, Katherine. Welcome back. So we've gone back to back. I'm making the most of the time. And we're now going to talk about your career journey. So I've been lucky here, right? So you're working as a physio. We spoke about your career as an athlete today. If we can just talk about your kind of journey into becoming a physio, what you have done and what you're currently doing.
So again, maybe slightly long-winded. I didn't go straight into physio. I did my degree in sports science at Loughborough, intentions of joining the army. So I did my placement year with the army, hoping to go into Sandhurst after I finished. Unfortunately, got diagnosed, as I mentioned on the other one, with an autoimmune condition, which means that you can't join. And then thought, oh God, what am I going to do? So I actually, to fill my time I was still getting treatment and didn't exactly know what was wrong with me or how to fix it. So I got a job in before that, I got a job in New Zealand as a coach. COVID happened, closed their borders, so I couldn't go. So then I got a job in sports events. There were no sports events because of COVID, so got made redundant. Then I was nannying for a bit. And then I thought, I'm going to be a physio. So I just sent in an application to do a physio masters because I always thought about doing physio. I was thinking about physio teacher and then I went army. So I went back to the whole physio thing, sent off my application, and then I did a 2-year masters in physio. And then as part of your physio degree, you have to do 1,000 hours of clinical placement work. So one of my placements was actually with Harlequins because I had a friend who was at the time going out with the coach. So I was like, safe, can I come and work there? And then Corinne, obviously, Corinne, basically took me under her wing, and I stayed there after my placement. So yeah, I did one of my placements there, loved it, stayed there for a while. And then I also went into private practice alongside it. So I think full-time in Harlequins, full-time in sport, is really hard to do your own sport. So I sort of was doing part-time Harlequins and then part-time private practice. So you've got a bit more flexibility and a bit more freedom.
For the audience, are you an MSK physio? So if I'm correct, when you learn, you go through all the different.
Yeah, you have to do everything.
Rotations, and you're specialising now in MSK?
I'm doing MSK, yeah. So that's basically musculoskeletal, which is probably what everyone thinks of as a physio. When you say, oh, I'm going to the physio, that's what you think of. But my placements were, I had a respiratory one. So I was on a respiratory ward during COVID, which was, an experience. I actually look back at it now and I'm like, actually was in a weird way quite a good experience. And then because you're helping people pretty much straight away, it was an interesting experience because there was a lot of people that didn't believe in COVID that had COVID, so that was a different one. And then I had an intensive care one, pediatric intensive care, which I actually loved. I don't think I'm strong enough to do that. Like, I found it so heartbreaking and so upsetting every day seeing what like families and parents were going through. But I did love it. But that was another one. So you're basically dealing with like heart and lung conditions or abnormalities in children. And then I had a cardiac placement and a neuro one. Oh, the neuro one I found hard as well. So that's things like stroke, Parkinson's, spinal cord injuries. I found that, again, like, I loved it because you're making quite a big difference to someone's life, but I also found it equally as heartbreaking, I think, because they wanted nothing more than to get better, and they probably weren't going to get that much better. Which is what I found difficult about my respiratory placement, because there's someone that has potentially made poor life decisions around smoking and stuff like that, that have every possibility of getting better but don't. And then you've got someone who has had a horrendous injury that would do anything to get better and can't. So I found that contrast quite difficult.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've got a cousin who works in paediatric A&E, and it's
Yeah,
I can't speak to her anymore with young children. I'm like, just don't talk to me because
I know. Yeah, I remember having to have an afternoon off because I just got so upset about someone. I was like, I can't deal with it. And I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, like you've just got to separate your work from your life." And I'm like, I can't, because it's their life. Like I can't separate my work from their life. Like that's their every day. That's their what they have to go through. They've got no choice. And so I just found that quite difficult, I think, to like emotionally detach myself.
But then I guess to a degree, like in my experience, although I've not got extensive experience, I always see that the physios and the rehab team are like the kind of mums.
That's honestly probably one of my favorite parts of the job, is the relationship you build with people, and actually how much they trust you with, and how close you come to some of them. And that's what I found really, really hard about leaving Harlequins, was the girls that I was leaving.
Yeah.
Because I got so close to a lot of them, and they do become like really, really good friends. And I think it's a safe space to go to, the physio. Like you've got no involvement in selection. You're kind of like, yeah, you don't have to drop anyone. You don't have to have those negative relationships with people, and you're actually just helping them. So I think you naturally become quite close to them.
And if anything, like you say, because you might have players that are in the squad and thriving, and then all of a sudden one thing happens, and then they're out of the squad.
They're out for a year.
They're
Yeah.
out for a year, and
Yeah.
then actually you're the one that's working so closely with them to get them to where they want to be. So
You're their constant, I think, in
yeah,
that environment. So, and yeah, you have to pick. I find it quite easy to put myself in their shoes, because I've been there myself. I know what it's like to not be able to do what you want to do, especially when you put so much time and effort
And
into
was
it.
that a driver? So in the last episode, we spoke about some of the challenges you had with growing up and through eating
Yeah.
and maturation, that kind of space. So was there a driving moment in there, or anything to note that kind of helped you, make you think, physio is definitely the right thing for me?
I think definitely throughout my placements, I was like, I can see myself doing this every day. And there was definitely a moment on one of my placements where I was speaking to my supervisor, who actually was my physio. He'd worked with British Athletics, and he'd just seen this young girl in, and he spoke about her weight and said that she needed to lose weight. And I honestly wanted the ground to eat me up. I was like, oh my God, you can't say that to a young girl. And then it went on, I sort of carried on the conversation with him, and he went, well, do you have a period? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he was like, well, you're clearly not training hard enough then. And I was like, what? And then he told me that my ideal weight for performance was 45 kilos. And he had no idea how much I weigh. He just plucked that number from midair. And I literally, I thought to myself, and I said, I was like, you can never say that to a young girl ever again. I was like, you're lucky that you've said that to me now. If you'd have said that to me 2-3 years ago, that would have triggered an eating disorder probably for the rest of my life. So I think that in that moment, I was like, I think I knew more about what field I'd want to go into, and how much bad education, and how much, like, I think in the past there's been so much emphasis on like lighter is faster, and like up to a certain extent maybe, but it's not, you don't have a long history, like you won't have a long successful career. You might do really well in 1 or 2 races and then you'll break, and then actually the knock-on effects for the rest of your life are massive. So I think I thought actually there's a massive space here for me to work with like young athletes that have been given poor advice, or actually no advice. Because I just thought that was outrageous. I was like, you can never say that to anyone ever again. Like, you genuinely have no right to say that. And it's also completely incorrect. He's also quite old and like a bit of a dinosaur. So I won't say his name, but
No,
people will know who he is.
I mean, it doesn't excuse it either. You know, you hear all these articles or first-person articles that go on BBC Sport. You're the first person that I've spoken to and been to. I remember at the coffee shop last week, and you said it. I was like,
yeah,
it's just painful.
And like, there was a moment in my head where I was like, oh my God, am I too heavy to be successful? And I genuinely thought about that. And I was like, don't put yourself on the scales. Don't weigh yourself. You don't need to know. It has no weighting towards your potential or how good you are as an athlete. But it went through my head. And I had to be like super solid and super strong and be like, no, that's wrong. Because it's so easy to compare yourself. And I think I look at some people and I think, oh, they're smaller than me and they're faster than me. But then they're probably not necessarily smaller than me, and it's everyone's different shapes and sizes. And but I just in that moment remember thinking, oh God, I need to be smaller to be successful. But I snapped at him, and I'm glad I did.
And how do you manage that side of things from a physio, where you've got an athlete that's annoyed, they've maybe have a timeline between
Yeah.
6 weeks to 6 months, and they
Yeah.
know what their kind of playing weight is or competition weight is. How do
Yeah.
you any conversations around that? Because it's not, is it within your scope, or is it, how does it kind of work, you know?
I think some of them are within my scope, and actually, I find it quite easy to open up those conversations because I find it quite easy to recognize because I've been there myself.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a good referral system between my clinic and some good sports doctors in the area. So I'm now fully private, working at a clinic called Beyond Health in Fulham, Parsons Green, and yeah, we get quite a lot of referrals. And now I've built up a relationship with some of the consultants in the area, so I get passed a lot of. I actually worked with Amal quite a lot as well. She's passed me some of hers before as well, and I've passed them to her. So, yeah, work closely with a lot of those who send me their patients or clients who have had a stress fracture, stress injury, don't necessarily know why it's happened. And then I can start opening up a conversation about maybe why. And a lot of the time they actually don't know why. They think it's normal to not have a period, or they think it's normal to train without eating before. Or so a lot of the time it's actually just educating them because they don't know. So if I've got a young girl in front of me, I often just have a general conversation about like, okay, so what's been happening? What's your training load? How much pain are you in? When's at its best? When's at its worst? And then you'll go, are you on any medication for anything? Sometimes they'll go, oh, I'm on the pill. Or I'll go, are you on any contraception? And then sometimes I'll go, do you have a menstrual cycle? So it's like a natural way of asking. And actually in a physio room, they're quite happy to open up. And then if they say, oh no, I actually don't have a period, you can go, okay, how long have you not had one for? When was the last time you did have one? And then I often ask them, do you know why you might not have had one? Does that concern you? And then I try and talk to them. A lot of the time at my appointments are a lot of talking around that type of injury. So I just ask them, do you know why? And a lot of the time they actually don't know. And sometimes they do know why, but they're scared to make the changes to get it back.
And I guess how many of them have got psychological support at all, perhaps? And then
Minimal.
in terms of the paperwork you receive on referral, have you had pretty objective indications that there may be underfueling going on? Is that how you
Yeah. I mean,
with confidence?
if you've got a female with a stress fracture, you kind of can it's likely that there's been a massive increase in load or there's underfueling involved. Sometimes you get sent their DEXA scan, and that can be really concerning as well, looking at that. And then consultants can be quite black and white with it, can't they? They don't necessarily sugarcoat it. They'll just be like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is that. But then trying to get the person in front of you to make a change and want to make a change is more difficult. So I sometimes find making small changes is better. So actually it's interesting because a lot of them don't want to eat before they train because they're worried about their stomach, and I completely get that. So it's like, okay, how about trying to have a gel or half a banana or something? So it's like not a massive, it's not as daunting being like you need to eat a meal as like, okay, how about half a banana as a start? And just explaining to them how like a female works compared to a male, because a lot of them were like, oh, my boyfriend doesn't eat, but I'm like, males are different to females. So a lot of the time it's just because they actually don't know. They don't know how to fuel, they don't know what they're supposed to eat. Because like in females, if you've lost your menstrual cycle, that's a massive sign that your body's shutting off anything that's not essential to survive in order to just function. And then that's when you're more likely to get a bone stress injury. And as a female, if you've got one, you're 10 times more likely to get a second one. So yeah.
And I guess there's a lot of strain going through the body when you are doing like running as well. So that can be an inherent aspect of running too. In terms of the nutrition side, because obviously you're leaning on a lot of your experiences and your knowledge that you've built up in your professional space, as well as being a high level. For what is your relationship with nutritionists? Because
I wish it was stronger. I wish it was stronger. Like we've got good referral pathways to like sports doctors, but in terms of the psych part and the nutrition part, I think that needs to be stronger. Because a lot of that is actually at home.
Is that in your experience in private and in professional sport as
In
well?
professional sport, so obviously we've worked together in professional sport, and I think it's available to them, but I think a lot of them don't see it as like, they see physio as essential because they're broken and they're like, we have to be fixed to go and get better. Whereas nutrition, sometimes I don't think they realize how you get some of the top ones that are obviously really great, really clued in, but not all of them use it. And I think they should use it more. But I don't know. Obviously, in professional sport, you've got access to it, but maybe they don't realize how important
Or how to start.
it is or how to start. Yeah. Whereas in private clinic, we don't have that referral pathway yet. It's something I think that would be really good to develop. But the person in front of you has to want to make the change. I think people find food scary, whereas they don't find exercise scary.
For me as a nutritionist, I'm going, like, I've been to a physio before. They've logged, with respect, the person I saw probably wasn't great. They logged into Physio tools. I don't know if they're still around. They printed off some exercises. I started doing this with a band, went home, did it for a couple of days, didn't do it again. And so I had to want to do it. I still think I've got an impingement in my shoulder. It might be
probably,
but, so it's the same bag, right? It's they're paying, the different thing is, I suppose, they've gone, well, I'm paying a lot of money to be going to see Katherine at this private.
So I'm gonna.
Whereas nutrition is not as readily available in a private consultancy space. Maybe you can walk down a lot of high streets in relatively affluent places and see those, or whereas you don't. I think nutrition is readily.
People are also, it depends on their mindset, but I think people are scared to see a nutritionist because they're going to get told to eat more. And if you have got a sort of pattern of disordered eating or an eating disorder, I think you're scared of what you're about to be told. So food can be seen as a scary thing, even though when you get in there, it won't be. It's just, I think the thought of it can be quite scary, even though it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm really keen. That's why I've got yourself in and other practitioners across the whole of sport and medicine sciences, because I want to kind of open everyone's eyes or the viewers' eyes to look how the importance of getting around good people, because, everyone sees nutritionists as negative enforcers. Like, you can't do that. You can't eat this. And often we're like, no, honestly,
eat it.
Talk to me. Come and talk to me. And then they're like, do you know what we're going to do? To make it even harder for nutritionists, we're going to bolt on that you have to be an anthropometrist to do skin fold analysis. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we already don't identify. In a lot of places, we don't know how to utilize a nutritionist. So we've got athletes coming and going, oh, this person's going to tell me I can't have my chocolate bar. And then I come along with calipers and they're like, this person's going to tell me I can't eat my chocolate bar and I'm fat. And I'm like, how am I ever going to have an impact on one day a week or whatever it's going to be?
I know,
because, I'm hoping that obviously changes. You can sort of see the passion in my mind, but
because I've got a few people at the moment where that I've thought about that really just need nutritional support. And I try to say to them, I'm like, it's not just necessarily how much you're eating, it's the type of food you're eating and the timing of it that's going to have a massive impact. And they're like, oh, really? It's just, again, it's like a complete unknown world and space that they don't know about.
I wonder how we can do that.
How can we do that?
Because it feels like in a professional environment like Quinn's, you can, get in a meeting together. We could be together, you, me, whoever else, with the athlete, and we all hear the same thing, and we're all on the same part, and it's time efficient. If you've got someone paying, let's say, £100 an hour to see you as a physio, 20 minutes of that time is talking about nutrition, then you're saying refer to me, and I'm going to charge them another, let's say, £100. And then they come to me for an hour, and it kind of feels a bit disjointed,
Yeah. I think so. We have we do have CPD stuff in our clinic where we get different consultants and stuff. Why don't you could come in to one, and then you meet the team, and then you're like a direct referral pathway.
Get me in.
Great. Perfect.
But it is interesting, right? Because going back to it, I can see why, and I can see why it's so important that the physios are on the same page as the nutritionists, and that applies to all of the MDT. But you can easily see how, and I've walked into some sports environments, and you walk into the physio room, and there's boxes and boxes of collagen shots, and you're thinking, okay, there may be some evidence to suggest this. And you talk to them about when and why they give it to them, and budgets and things, and they're having it every day, twice a day. Everyone has it. You're spending $1,000 a month, and you're thinking, have you spoke to them about anything other than that? And I'm not meant to be hammering physios in any way, but I think you quite rightly, the amount of knowledge you've had in nutrition probably has come from your being a professional athlete as well as everyone else.
It's not from my degree, that's for
Yeah,
sure. I've got
well,
no idea
exactly. And
about
then
it.
there's scope
Yeah,
of practice, but we can't expect, and actually we need nutritionists to maybe go in and talk to physios to say, when you are on that,
yeah,
all that physio time with the athlete, maybe you can drip feed this. And that's one of the things that I was keen to do at Quins was, what are our strategies when people get this type of injury? How can I give you some tools to enable you to know that that's
yeah.
kind of the right thing? Didn't quite happen because I wasn't there long enough, but but I think
Sarah can do
yeah,
it.
but I think it's something to bear in mind. How can we share best practice
Yeah,
to enable conversations that are naturally going to occur more in your
yeah,
environment, that are going to overlap with
yeah,
nutrition, to make the life easier of these clients, whilst not, devaluing ourselves, because it's not
yeah,
trying to get the most for the client without
yeah.
making it messy.
I've had some appointments where like one of my patients has been in with a sports doc and I just zoom into their call. So then I'm on board with it. And I think that's sometimes a good way of doing it. If one of my clients had an appointment with you, you have the appointment, you're in your safe space, and then I can join for 10 minutes at the end and then we have a little bit of
Well,
a chat.
you've built the relationship through the physio. You've done the
Yeah.
referral, so you being part of that could be a nice thing.
Yeah.
I think we've just made an absolute gold mine there. We're gonna
Yeah.
be like, we're
We're
gonna be
gonna
we're
we're
gonna
gonna
be.
be business partners.
So can we go back into the kind of what it looks like in both your Quins role? What did it look like as a physio? And
Yeah.
then what does it now look like when you're doing your private stuff too? So for those that are interested in this space.
So different environments, very much, very, very different environments. I think obviously working in sport was great. It's a little bit more chaotic, but it's also so much fun, and you have build such good relationships with everyone. Like I don't think I had a day at Quins where I actually felt like I was at work. I just felt like I was going to see my friends. But then at the same time, there's probably more pressure, more stress because they're paid to play rugby, and well, some of them are paid to play rugby, and that's what they're there for. And the coaches might be like, well, we want them back in a certain time frame, more pressure on it sort of going well. And for them, that's a massive part of their life.
Mhm.
So they can be quite down about it as well. So I think a big part of being a physio is like just being quite positive as well. Like they don't really want to be seeing you, so make them actually really enjoy their hour with you, and that hopefully they walk out feeling better than when they walked in. But I think what's also great about working in sport is that you've got lots of people around you, so you're constantly working with the other physios. You've got the doctor on hand, you've got your nutritionist, your psych, and you've got kind of everything. So if you're not sure about something, it's so easy to be like, oh, can you just have a look at this person? um and you've also got like your on pitch stuff, you're in the gym stuff, you're in the physio room stuff, you've got your match days. It's definitely a lot more varied in terms of what you do day to day in work. But there's a lot of people to manage because you've got your injury caseload. So you might have your like long term injuries, but then you've also got a squad of 40 plus that just need their every day. I've got a little niggle here, my calf's a bit sore. So you're trying to keep on top of all those players, as well as the ones that need more attention because they've actually got a long term injury that they're rehabbing from. And then on top of that, you've got to try and then do your notes and your admin, which I was very bad at. But that's the side of things that I wasn't very good at. And then private clinic, it's much more structured. So your diary is kind of in a way managed for you. Like people call up the clinic or they'll be referred from a consultant. I need to book in with XYZ. And I see mostly MSK. I actually have got a couple of people with Parkinson's, and I've had someone with MS as well, and someone with a brain injury. So it's mostly MSK, but I've got a couple of anomalies that I actually really enjoy doing because it's different. But I get a real variety of like young children that might have like fallen out of a tree. I get some people that have, for example, a part of like Fulham Football Academy that have had a bit of an injury, and you work closely with them. You get your referrals from your sports doctors, your universities in the area. I get a lot of my injuries are like post-surgical and stress fracture, under fueling type things, because I think once consultants know what you like doing, they send you more of those. And yeah, so that's probably more what I see. But you still get like your chronic lower backs, your shoulder dislocations, your skiing injuries. But it's more structured. Your diary is like half an hour, half an hour, half an hour, half an hour. So you're back to back with half an hour appointments. Whereas in
Yeah.
sport, you might be rehabbing one person whilst having a conversation with another, whilst giving someone advice on something else. So you're kind of seeing 5 people at once. Whereas private clinic, it's very much like organized 30-minute appointments, 30 minutes an hour appointment. Right, great, I'll see you in a week. I think, again, the difference is when that patient walks out the door, I've given them the tools that it's their problem for a week. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I need to let them get on with it. Whereas at Quinn's, I find it quite hard to switch off because they've all got your number. They can talk to you all the time, which is great. I like that. But you can't really switch off from it because you see them every day and it's ongoing. So that's where the differences are.
Thanks for that explanation. Did you get what are the most common injuries you saw at Quinn's, for example, that you were managing, you say?
ACLs, ACLs, ankles, shoulders, I'd say.
And in terms of, I think it crosses over with both the private and
calves as well.
Professional, where it's just rugby everywhere.
Everything. Concussions,
anywhere.
Basically everything in rugby.
Basically, it's brutal.
Great place to learn though, because you get everything.
So in terms of both in clinical and in professional sport, how does it work in terms of, okay, this has just happened, this person's going in for surgery now? Because a lot of the time NHS, you're going to, depending on the severity of the injury, tell me if I'm wrong, you go into surgery reasonably quickly. In terms of your intervention beforehand, is that holistic, or is that you stay in your lane? And because I'm just thinking from a nutrition standpoint, you're going into surgery, so you're getting cut up a lot of the time, and the energy need, and we don't, to my knowledge, we don't have a great deal of pre-surgery nutrition advice, but it feels to me that you almost need to do a mini carb load, to give.
See, people would do the opposite, I think. People would be like, I'm about to not be able to exercise, I need to just cut all my fuel out. But actually, you need fuel to recover.
And often before surgery, they do say to come in fast, to tell me if I'm wrong. So they do that. So I wonder whether it's not the day before, it's a couple of days before. But
there's no talk on nutrition, really. I think at Quinn's, they do, when someone's got an injury, you can have a chat with them about what your intake and output and stuff is going to look like. So at Quinn's, I
always think like a nice little care package would be nice,
there's nothing like that in private clinic. It's very much like go for it. And
with respect to NHS or hospitals, and you'll know as well, like when people have had surgery, they often are either been drugged up or they don't feel like eating. So I often feel like you could do something from a psychological hit, like what do you love to eat? And then that will help actually help with that initial acute phase. And like real kind of applied kind of holistic care. And I think, again, maybe when we take over the world in our new plan, then that don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. It's our secret. There's not really any advice around nutrition for surgery, pre-surgery, post-surgery. And actually, it's a question I get quite a lot. So I've got a couple of people in private clinic at the moment doing ACL rehab. And one of the girls has asked, she's like, I'm struggling a little bit at the moment with feeling like an athlete, and I just feel like I'm putting on weight, but I also know I need to fuel to be able to rehab, but my cardio has gone massively down. She was like, what should I be eating? And is there anything I can do to try and combat that? And that's, again, where it would be really good to have a pathway to refer to a nutritionist, because I don't really know. Like I can give a little bit of advice, being like, it's still really important to have some carbohydrate before you train, carbohydrate and protein after you train. But in terms of like actual calories in, calories out, macros, how much difference it should be when you're fully training, when you're not, I don't know any of that.
And I feel like there's a missing piece there, right, in terms of how the client is going to feel good when they're seeing you, because they know in terms of their muscular recovery, tenderness recovery, whatever it might be, they're right things to promote that. But then from the kind of inflammatory or recovery perspective, you're there going, well, and in terms of body comp, right, people are naturally going to lose muscle mass normally when they're injured or immobilized or whatever it might be. So there's that psychological element of going, well, I don't want to do that. So what do people often do? If they don't want to, they can either stop eating, or they
don't know how to adjust.
They go the other way, and they've lost more mass than they wanted to, and it takes them longer to then get back into it. So it's quite a loaded space, I think. But
I had someone who was like, right, I need to just not put on weight, so I'm going to become vegan, but had no idea how to become vegan, and just basically ends up eating loads of carbohydrates and ends up putting on weight. So that was a unique strategy. Didn't work very well. But I did say, I was like, I don't think that's a very good idea.
it's an interesting one, isn't it?
You get some odd ones, yeah.
I guess there's that real crossover, and that's where I think as a physio you've got such a loaded and important role that you're there on the ground, and you, like you said, you've got the therapist aspect, which is the crossover with psychology. You're
Yeah.
naturally going to have nutrition in there because it's going to be in that space too.
Yeah.
About how do we kind of make sure we get that link right, and I think I'm super keen, and that's why I'm really pleased to have connections like you, and anyone listening that's going new into nutrition or physiotherapy, I would urge you just to connect with people, right? So
Yeah,
with
definitely.
like-minded people. I know that you're an athlete that's interested in the athlete injury space, so therefore we can talk to each other. A bit like a Mal
Yeah.
and her space, because she works a lot with people that are under fueling or
Yeah.
have indications of that from objective blood markers and so on.
Yeah.
You kind of soon make this little network, and that's one of the driving forces behind this podcast. Can we encourage people to give people the tools to feel a bit more confident,
Yeah,
feel
definitely.
they're kind of winging it.
Yeah.
And I think we've already identified a few things that could be better, but yeah, for anyone listening, hopefully that's a useful thing. I mean, is there anyone on that basis that you've lent on as a kind of mentory space, or you work with across disciplines that are outside of your kind of day to day that you
I
that,
definitely lent on a Mao a lot for like the Reds space. I was actually going to do a PhD in Loughborough on that, so I wrote a proposal for it. And they offered me the PhD, but it was then going to end up being full time down in Loughborough. And I wanted it, and it was funded but not paid. So I would have really struggled to do that
yeah,
full time because I need to work alongside it. So I couldn't end up doing it. But I think they're still using that proposal as part of the study. But I definitely lent on a Mal a lot for that type of thing. And then I've got a mentor in my private clinic who I have a meeting with every week, where he talks me through like the injury side of things and the rehab side of things. But yeah, in terms of like a mentor in terms of like nutrition and fueling, and yeah, I don't really, I'd love to know more about it. I'd
I
like
guess
to learn more.
yeah, I guess it's about those connections, isn't it? Have you got
Yeah.
like we've got some lucky we've
I've
been.
probably got the most from you at Quins,
Well,
to be
thank you
honest.
very much. Thank you very much. um, but yeah, I think it's important to have people to share and connect with, right? And we've identified that in sport you're going to get injured probably.
You
So
will. It's part of pushing your body. Like obviously, ideally, you don't get a big injury, you don't get injured, but it is also part of learning what your limits are. You have to get a little bit of a niggle sometimes, and it's part of it. And I think getting people to accept that is hard.
yeah.
Mm.
So I guess to finish up, just conscious of time, and I've had you for almost 2 hours today, but
It's gone quite quick, actually.
yeah. Can you give some guidance for maybe aspiring physios or people interested in this area, and kind of what they could do? Because I know there's lots of pressure on particularly young people now, or people even just trying to
Mm.
come out of a career and
Yeah.
go, I like the idea of physio. Is there any advice you'd give to people, maybe if they are having those initial inclinations of wanting to do that, in terms of what they could do?
Yeah, I think I remember trying to decide what to do for A level, and I was like, I honestly don't really know what I want to do at the moment. I think that was one of the reasons I wanted to go into the army because I wasn't really entirely sure what I did want to do. So I just chose subjects that I enjoyed because I was like, if you enjoy it, you're probably going to want a long career in it. And then yeah, again, I still didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did sports science, kept it broad. If you need to do another degree or another course after it, once you have decided, that's completely fine. Like realistically, we're going to be working for quite a long time. So if it takes an extra couple of years to get into something, then I think that's fine. And I would say if you can and you're quite keen on something, maybe go and see if you can get a little bit of work experience, or yeah, just contact someone you know that's working in that space and see if you can shadow them for a week, and then you're actually in it and you can see actually is this something I'd quite like to do. But I'd also say it's okay to change your mind. If
Yeah.
you go into something and you decide actually this isn't for me, it's never too late to change your mind, and you can go into something else. But yeah, I'd just say I think it's important to do subjects you enjoy, try and get a little bit of experience in it if you can, and if you decide you don't like it, then yeah, it's okay to change your mind and you can go and do something else.
Love it. No, thanks so much. I think it's been, yeah, really great talking to you about all these aspects and identifying, that important role that physios play in terms of sending some messages across from nutrition, and how we need to be as interdisciplinary as possible, even if we
Yeah.
are in, clinics that are specifically for one thing. How can we?
Yeah.
How's that going
It's
to impact?
interesting because actually a lot of the injuries I see are because of poor nutrition.
Yeah.
But they're coming to see me. Whereas actually what they should do is go and see probably a nutritionist.
I probably
But
made myself a little bit of a side hustle from this chat here.
yeah, there you could.
No,
Send
thanks
me
so
your
much for your
business
time.
card.
Thanks so much, Catherine. And if people wanted to get in touch with you for physio, if they're listening and they're injured, would you be able to share your details to the
Yeah,
link? And I'll do the
yeah,
same with the previous chat around your
perfect. Yeah,
work too. Brilliant. Thanks so
super.
much.
No worries. Cool.